Is
conceptually.
he grabbing you like a lot of coffees and stuff and snacks?
No, he grabs himself snacks. That's what he does. There's his bottle of milk, chocolate milk for the day.
That is such a funny thing. A bottle of milk.
Yeah, that's just the chocolate one. Then there's the gallon of milk that probably gets drunk on a daily basis by that one.
His bones must be nice and strong, though. That must be nice.
It must be, yeah.
That's great.
The breakdown. He breaks down his food and his calciums real well, apparently.
Good. No, that's good. I'm the opposite. I used to drink milk all the time growing up, and I have broken 13 bones. So it's just didn't work for me.
Didn't help you at all?
Didn't translate at all. No, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
I stopped maybe in my 20s drinking milk. There's something, I had no taste for it anymore.
Right.
But I've never broken a bone.
Okay.
Ever.
So you're the anomaly.
So apparently I didn't need to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's funny. I went to the doctor when I broke my wrist like 2 years ago, and I said, "Can you tell me how many times I've been here?" And he looked at my file and he had to keep scrolling. He said, "It looks like you've broken 13 bones." And I said, "That's weird. I drank a lot of milk growing up." And he said, "I wouldn't know that."
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know the equation there.
Neither do I.
Apparently my body said I don't need milk anymore. And so far it's worked out okay. We'll see. Maybe I'll go on a bad run for the next 25 years if I live that long.
Well, that's a very morbid way to start this quarantine conversation with your friend and mine, Kyle Agonia. Hello, Kyle. I have a question for you. I was so excited to get you on today because I have a question.
I'm ready.
You are super active on the live streams with your username Papa Bear. Now, I want to know, what is the story behind that? I think we all are wondering.
Here, hold on one second. I'll explain the story to you.
Please, I love it. And while Kyle is getting whatever he needs to get, I will stall. This is what happens when you don't tell people what you're going to ask them beforehand. They have to get up in the middle of an interview, or right when the interview starts, and go get something. But he's back. Good. All right.
Back.
All right.
When my seniors left, they gave me a parting gift. And it looks like that.
Oh my goodness, that is very special.
And it's been my cup. And so when I was logging in that first time to the live stream, I was using Caleb's name, and then I'm like, oh, I'd have to come up with my own name. And so I came up with the name Papa Bear. And,
great name.
It's from my cup.
It works. That's funny. So have you been active on YouTube before the live streams, or is this kind of your first dip into the YouTube realm?
I had to register an account on YouTube. The first day I went in under Caleb's name.
Okay.
If you were reading the streams, I would actually comment under his name silly things, and then people would probably think it's him and go, "What's wrong?"
That's Caleb? A good prank. I like that prank a lot.
So I actually got a YouTube account solely for live stream.
Nice.
I have only been on YouTube for live stream. So outside of the live stream, I haven't gone on it.
Nice. So So that's great, and that clears up a lot of my questions. Like, my thought was like, you have been active on YouTube for a long time under a pseudonym, and now that you've been commenting on the live streams, you've been exposed. And so I was like, I hope that he's okay with me asking this.
No, the answer is much simpler than that.
It's just right there. That's great. So you're working at home. We can tell with the headset. What exactly do you do, Kyle? Let all the people know.
I am an investment strategist. So I have clients. My clients are predominantly wealthy people, and I invest money for them in the liquid markets. So stocks, bonds, mutual funds, things of that nature. So they're tangible or taxable money that's liquid is what I handle.
Right. So I knew that, and I wanted to ask that because we hear a lot of these things in this season, particularly about like the stock market, and you hear a lot about how people are losing money, and it's a very financially stressful time. So my question is, how are your clients handling what's happening right now? And then where do you get to speak into them about maybe a greater sense of security or a greater sense of peace, if at all?
Yeah, well, twofold. One, they handle it well, because most of my clients have some sizable estate where, they could, my strategy with them early on was free up cash enough to cover you for 2 years, and then let everything play out or ride out. And I am a little bit more conservative in my strategies. So I find that I weather these storms better
Okay.
than if somebody was really aggressive in the marketplace. So for me, it's like I might be down this year across the board, but it's all single digit stuff.
Right.
And people haven't lost that much money.
Hmm.
Um, in regards to my impact, it's imperative for me to be a voice of peace and reason. Uh, People unfortunately put their safety and security in their finances and
Right.
in their resources, and it's for me to try to represent a peace, or maybe just an ability to look past current situations and look into future, in order to give them a little bit less anxiety.
That's good.
Yeah.
I love that. And I just think, you have a really interesting and very unique perspective among our staff and our students. The main thing you're hearing is financial stress, and you're kind of living in that world. How do you balance work life? Cause you're obviously working at home. What has that been like for you?
I set up the ability to work from home many years ago,
Hmm.
because in the summer, I've always wanted to be very active, participating in the lives of the kids. So taking them to school or being part of sports programs or something like that was something that I really wanted to do and have my career be able to grow and develop while dedicating or fixating a lot of time
Hmm.
on family.
Yeah.
Because of that, I set up the ability to work from home years ago. And in the summer when the kids are home, I would often work from home 2 out of the 5 days in a week.
Okay.
Now I'm down to Fridays. I would work from home on Fridays, and I'd go into the office Monday through Thursday. But I'm certainly equipped, because of the years
Right.
of wanting to be home at least once a week or twice a week, to be able to do this. Now it's more than um, my wife would probably enjoy, just because she needs her peace and
Right.
serenity
Right.
associated with the kids being at school and me being at work. But I'm trying to be as least amount bothersome as
Yeah.
I possibly can.
Yeah. I hear that. Oh, I hear that. I hear that loud and clear. So you've had this for a while. It feels natural. It feels nice. Have you missed any part of going in the office at all?
Oh yeah, no, I was talking with a colleague this morning, and we were just talking about how nice it will be to go back into the office.
Hmm.
Um, I'm functional here,
Right.
but I'm really just kind of skimming the surface, responsive as opposed to proactive.
Hmm.
And I think that the biggest issue there is that it's easier to be active or proactive when you're in the office or in that environment. Right now it's really just getting through
Yeah.
day by day.
Yeah. Trying to figure it out. That's exactly what I'm feeling, and I like that language of responsive and skimming the surface. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
So you're home with your family, you got work, got live streams. What have you been doing for Kyle? What have you been doing in your own kind of spiritual walk? Because it sounds like you have a lot of stuff, excuse me, going on, right? With being, in the house and working. And so how have you been connecting with the Lord in this time? And what has God been teaching you in those moments? And how do you find that time?
Well, I think I really always try and find um, a way to find the positive in any
Hmm.
situation. And so I'm looking at this situation and hoping that I can come out of this current environment maybe a better me than the me that went into it. So I'm very disciplined on trying to maintain my eating habits
Hmm.
and maintain my my workouts, and continue to wake up at the same times and things. So just keep my discipline, but then also look to try and improve upon certain things that maybe I had got a little lazy in, like working in the yard or things like
Hmm.
that. Um, or even how I use my off time, or my entertainment time. I mentioned I'm not a big fan of watching TV, so I'm not streaming shows and catching up on my Netflix stuff. I've got involved in podcasts. I never did podcasts before. So like Francis Chan, and I've been listening to his podcasts, or I'll listen to music and things, and just try and develop in that manner, and maybe improve upon myself, so that when I come out of this better, deeper in my relationship with God. I was thinking about that before you called, in regards to like my prayer life. I'm a big fan of prayer being a key component of my life. And I don't find that I necessarily sit there and stop and pray as much, because I'm constantly in communication with God.
That's great.
Because there's so much solace in the time we have, that instead of actually devoting time to being in a prayer setting, it's like the mind is constantly in that communication. And that's just how I've always, or I haven't always, but I live that way, where my prayer life is not necessarily about me praying as much as just being in constant communication, or let's call it praying without ceasing, because I've trained myself to always be in dialogue with God in my mind. And that is, my communication is constant. And that's been nice, but I've had a lot to discuss with God, God recently, and it's just like, constant, how do I get through this? I'm sorry about that. How can I do better in my life? That thing, So.
So obviously students will be watching this, and I'm sure, and I feel the same way. I'm sure there's students watching it saying like, I want to get there in my prayer life. I want to get to that point where it's praying without ceasing. And obviously that doesn't happen overnight. So my question is, what advice would you give to a student or someone listening to this who wants to get there? And we have this season of quarantine ahead of us. Like, how could we make the most of this time for our prayer life, in your opinion?
Well, I think anything you do requires a discipline and a training. It doesn't happen naturally, and it doesn't happen overnight. You can't just say, I want to do that, and then all of a sudden do it. It has to be something that you're what would be the term? Purposefully seeking after. So it's like, if I want to improve my prayer life, it's like, dedicating time to being in prayer, but then also, taking captive your thoughts and thinking, okay, what am I thinking right now? And am I having that communication with God in my thought time? And if I'm not, how do I begin that process? And it's something you just have to practice and really focus on. I think everything that we do, especially in our walk with God, doesn't happen just naturally. It's something that we have to continue to work on and strive toward. And I think that's just something that I've strived toward for a number of years, and I'm at a point where that's how I communicate. It's a constant dialogue in my mind.
What's been the most consistent prayer in this season for you?
Peace. I've been praying for a peace over this household, peace over the relationships with my kids and with my wife, a peace and a reduction of anxiety for a number of my friends. I'm in a community here where we have a social group of friends that we're in constant communication with, most of which are not believers. And I know that without that peace that comes from Jesus, that there's an anxiety associated with what's going on right now, because your security is being challenged. If your security is your home and your family and your life and your wealth and your job, that's all being challenged right now. And so I'm praying over those people that don't have a relationship with the Lord. This would be an opportunity for him to make himself known to them in the challenge of them dealing with lacking peace and not having control over their lives.
Wow. That's great. And I think that's most people's prayer right now, peace. But I love that you are having an outward sacrificial thinking of others piece. I think that's huge. And I think that if students were to adopt that, pray for peace or ask peace upon others, and started to try to tell their friends, hey, I've been praying for peace and for you, not because I want you to think I'm so great, but because I want you to know that, then maybe their friends would be praying peace over them, and we would just be having kind of a peaceful network. And I wonder what that would look like in the South Bay or in Impact. I think that's super awesome. And that's, I mean, I'm just sitting here listening, sitting at your feet of wisdom, Kyle. I just think you're the wealth of knowledge that we all need to hear in this time. And we're hit the mark, and so I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to ask the last question I ask everybody. You said you haven't been watching a lot of TV, but I am interested in one thing you've been listening to, reading, watching that has really brought you joy or happiness in quarantine, and you want to recommend to all of us.
Does it have to be reading, watching? Can it be playing?
Anything you're doing.
Okay. I don't want to recommend it to anybody. It is the biggest killer of time and the biggest waste I could possibly think of. It kind of go that concept of constantly striving toward, being better and being more disciplined as I come out of this.
It comes to a head right here.
Thwarted in regards to the time I waste playing Disney Emoji, the little video game on my phone. I have to log in multiple hours every day, killing my brain cells by just flicking emoji into blocks of 3 so that I can finish a board.
I'm dying. I am legitimately dying because I knew you played this game. I knew it, but
dumbest, most worthless thing I can think of, and I spend hours every day killing time on it.
That's great. Is there like a social aspect where like people can play against you, or are you just trying to get points? What's the ontological purpose of this game?
You're striving for characters, points, diamonds, everything is, I'm a very driven person in regards to what motivates me. So every morning I kind of go and I set a game plan for what I want to accomplish today, because there's different things that you can do. So I want to, finish 2 or 3 challenges, and I want to accumulate this, and I want to get this much gold, and I need to set targets for my day so that I can achieve what I want to in the course of my day. It is an absolute waste of time, and I don't promote it to anybody, and I'm sure my time would be better served by, being in God's word, and yet here I am squandering it
with emojis. It happens. We need a break. We need a little bit of break sometimes, and I hear that. Kyle, you're the best. Thank you so much for jumping on and talking. This was a huge, huge blessing to me, and I will go back to this conversation and think about prayer in a new way. So thank you for that. Stay safe. Best to the family.
You do the same. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
You're awesome.
Hopefully I'll be able to do it again.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we could do it in person is what you're trying to say, because
that would be great.
I don't want to do this again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle.
All right, honey. Take care.
See ya.